Hello everyone, it's me again. I am back with an update and more or less a correction of my previous video. Now, this is a little bit embarrassing, but I did say some things in the previous video that I think are actually pretty inaccurate and very misleading. So today I want to correct some of those things, as well as just give you my overall impressions after uh, testing Kayle in the top lane further. And basically what I found out, and also this was pointed out to me in the comments, so thank you, Kayle 1v9 for saying it. But I already knew it by the time you said it. Basically what I'm talking about is that in my recent Kayle guide, I was talking a lot about the statistics and the win rates of the different masteries. And basically, for Kayle top lane, if you look at just the win rate and nothing else, it turns out that Storm Raider Surge has the highest win rate. But win rate is not everything. You also have to consider that sometimes if a thing has a very low pick rate, these can be like freak accidents. And I don't think Storm Raider Surge is the best mastery for top lane, which I kept saying in that video that it was, but upon further testing, I just don't think it's good enough. The reason for that is because, first of all, in order to proc it in the first place, you need to be able to deal quite a bit of damage to your opponent, which is fairly difficult to do with this particular mastery setup, and you just won't find yourself proccing Storm Raiders a lot, even against a squishier target, which is when you're supposed to be able to do it. Let alone against a tanky target. Remember, this is mostly Kayle top lane, so you will be playing against tanks every once in a while, or even just a bruiser or something, anything that builds just a little bit of health, and your Storm Raiders pretty much goes out the window. So that's a huge downside, and that's why I think Storm Raiders is way better for mid laners. Another thing he pointed out to me was that if you are playing mid lane Kayle, and you are going Storm Raiders, and you are going Intelligence, that 45% CDR might be a bit much. And so you could switch out CDR in your rune page for something else, like maybe ability power. Next thing I want to say is that Fervor of Battle for top lane is the best setup. This is much more prevalent to you when you're in game and you're actually feeling the difference. Now, by the time I made the video, I had tried out Thunderlords quite a bit, and I just started playing with Storm Raiders. Now that I've tested both of these things, and Fervor of Battle, I can tell that Fervor of Battle is just way better. So, big correction from before. All these points going into Cunning, they need to be in Ferocity. So I'm going to show you guys right now what my current Kayle mastery setup is. Fury is better than Sorcery, it gives you more damage. Now, as far as these three masteries go, you can pretty much pick whatever you want. I like Fresh Blood because Kayle gets to auto-attack her opponents quite often in lane. I also think Natural Talent is better than Vampirism because Kayle has an easy time sustaining herself for the most part. It also more or less depends on what you do with the rest of these 12 points, but I don't think she really needs Vampirism. I think the extra damage from Natural Talent is better. Battle Trance is better for obvious reasons. Kayle does mostly sustained damage, so Battle Trance is just amazing. Piercing Thoughts, just because Kayle does mostly magic damage, even with Fervor of Battle, she still does mostly magic damage, and Piercing Thoughts is actually better than Battering Blows. If you really want to, you can kind of split the points like this. So I do 18 in Ferocity, and I do these exact points. Next up, we have the other 12 points that were like this in the video I made. I would actually rearrange all of these, even if you're, except for Recovery, even if you're staying in Resolve. I would go Tough Skin because, well, whatever you can do to survive in lane, you need to do that, basically. Now, Runic Armor versus Veteran Scars is a little on the fence. Veteran Scars is insanely good early game. 50 flat health is a lot, and you're going to need to heal a lot for Runic Armor to make up for that. However, Kayle has a heal in her kit, And if you're building ability power, runic armor turns out to be really great. Even if you're not building ability power, if you're getting stuff like Blade of the Ruin King, the lifesteal is also amplified by runic armor. I think overall Veteran Scars is better early and runic armor is better in the late game. I would probably go with runic armor. And lastly, we have Insight versus Perseverance. I also said that Perseverance was better there. It's true that it has the higher win rate, but again, win rate is not everything. I think Insight for top laners specifically is better simply because teleport on a shorter cooldown gives you indirect sustain. So this right here is what I would go with now, which is a pretty massive difference between what I told you guys in the video. However, it's not the only option. One of my big mistakes in the video was not just about what I assumed to be the best thing, but also that I was talking about things as if they were very sort of set in stone. The thing about masteries on Kayle is that they are anything but set in stone, okay? You can do many different things. Even if you're going 12 resolve, you don't have to do these exact things that I like to do. For the reasons that I like to do them. You can still do Veteran Scars if you want to. You can do Explorer if you want that. Same thing applies to the 12 points in Cunning if you do go into Cunning. You can go Wanderer if you want to. I would go Savagery. The reason I would go Savagery is because sometimes in the top lane as Kayle you get pushed under a turret, and having that extra damage for the last hitting is just really nice. It's just a nice mastery in general. It's basically indirect gold. That's what it gives you, is just a gold mastery. Assassin for top lane is obvious. What isn't obvious is Meditation and Merciless. Now, I was mostly arguing in favor of Meditation previously. This is because Meditation is very underrated and most people would go Merciless without me telling them to do so. What I said about Meditation still applies. It's all true. Meditation is a great mastery and you can totally go with that. You don't have to go Merciless at all. What I failed to mention is that Merciless is also a very good mastery, so it's actually a bit of a tough call. It's not just like Meditation is unequivocally the better mastery, it's just the underrated mastery, but you can go with either one. Also, I don't think Bandit is as good as I made it out to be. You will get 3 gold for basic attacking your lane opponent. Dangerous Game is a very reliable mastery, so I don't know. I would probably go with Dangerous Game after actually having played with Bandit and testing it out and seeing like how it feels, because it doesn't feel like it makes too much of a difference really. So that's it. That's the correction for the mastery setup. You can go into Cunning. If you want to go just get as much damage as possible, you can get something like this. If you want to get as much survivability as possible, you can go something like this. Or if you're like me, you're probably gonna go somewhere in between and do this right here. Now that was most of the corrections. That was all the corrections for the masteries. I have something to say about the items as well. I have a couple things to say. One of them I think is a correction, the other one is more of an extra little tip. First of all, starting Infinity Edge is viable. Starting Infinity Edge first item is viable, like I said in the video. However, it's not as good as starting Trinity Force. I'm saying this because the extra attack speed from Trinity Force, as well as the damage proc and even the movement speed, it all just makes for a much more well-rounded item than the Infinity Edge. Attack speed is just super valuable on Kayle. It also gives you the cooldown reduction you need. Hell, it even gives you flat health, which is good for early game. The tip I want to give you, the extra thing that I kind of forgot to mention, more or less, is that if you want to, you can get a relatively early Phantom Dancer. In fact, I would say every single one of the builds where you go Runaan's Hurricane, you can actually switch the Runaans out for a Phantom Dancer instead if you want to. Why would you do that? Well, I've seen other people do it, and the reason you do it is because it allows you to 1v1 people much more easily. It gives you single target % damage reduction, which is pretty insane for split pushing. Which means if you're not going to be team fighting, and if you're just going to be a split pushing machine, obviously Phantom Dancer is better than Runaan's Hurricane. Runaan's Hurricane is the team fighting item. It is an AoE item. And similarly, Phantom Dancer is the split pushing item. It is the best single target 1v1 kind of item in the game. You can get it relatively early, like I said. You don't have to get it like 6th item like these particular builds are showing right here. So those are my corrections for the guide, at least for now. I think when they introduce Season 8, I might just remake the whole thing and just do a completely new guide. But for now, I think at least this should do as far as correcting some of the rather accidentally misleading things that I managed to say in my first video. Anyway, I hope this helped you out, and thank you for watching. Have a nice day.